All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 6:02. We're going to meeting off here. This is the meeting for Wednesday, September 7th. If you would all please join me for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic which stands one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First up, we have the minutes for August 3rd and August 10th.
Move to approve.
Are we doing both or just one?
Well,
Let's do them one at a time. Stack of August 3rd.
I guess the question I had was, it seems like the dates were flip flop, and I was hoping someone could confirm for me if I was crazy or not.
You're definitely crazy.
I know that.
Okay.
Um,
August 10th should have been the short meeting to discuss the project up to. August 3rd would have been the regular.
okay, so I guess move to approve August 3rd.
Okay.
Um,
Motion to approve August 3rd. Hold that for second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All right. Go
The
ahead.
reason I was confused, I guess, is on page 2, right above note 5, it said Nate Oxnard exited the meeting at 6:11. I thought that was the short meeting that Nate had to exit early.
No, we moved that meeting up to 5 o'clock.
Oh, we did?
Yes, so that
Gotcha.
Nate was on the timetable for, I can't remember the exact reason why, but,
That's fine.
and then I believe if I recall correctly, that was the meeting we basically wrapped up the conversation, we take any action. All right, any additional discussion regarding the meetings for August 3rd? Okay, go ahead.
F, world cultures. I'd like to make a note of Elizabeth's comments about, it does say families are able to pursue world language classes on their own through VLAX. But I would maybe add with study hall time provided. Did you hear that, Tripp?
Yep, it said help time provided during the day.
And did you have anything?
I'm gonna have to recuse myself from voting on them because I wasn't there for that next one.
Oh, correct. All right. So with that being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and one abstention. So it's 3-1. Gigi hasn't jumped on yet, actually. All right, if Gigi does, if you see her pop on, we do need to motion to allow her to participate remotely. So can you please let me know if she jumps in? Absolutely. Yeah. All right, let's see here. That leaves us, or brings us to the minutes for August 10th, which was discussion for, additional discussion for the field up top. What's the wish of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Right, discussion. So it's a quick one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good, that wraps that up. Okay. Bring us over to public comments. Anybody have comments from the public? Seeing none, all right. We do have to, for event review, a couple of things under board reports. We're going to strike the executive board report and CRB. Executive board meets, I believe, next week, Nate.
Yep.
And CRB, I believe, is in a couple of weeks of it kicking. So we'll catch up with them shortly. And then I'm going to strike item number 9, but I do need to add a brief non-public immediately following the agenda review. For the board, we'll step into the other room so nobody has to leave this room. We just have to talk about something very quickly. So does any of the other board members have any items they wish to add, change, or tweak in the agenda?
The only question I have on the agenda is the discussion of goal setting and everything. Will that occur at our next meeting?
We can certainly add that to,
For the next for the work session.
Yeah.
yep, if we can do that. Anything else? And I think we can probably, NBC starts tomorrow. There's not going to be a whole lot going on with NBC agenda. Business meetings moving forward, so it's just there as a continuing item. All right. Anything else from the other board members? No. All right. So per NH RSA 91A3(2), small letter K, I'll look for motion to acknowledge.
So
Second, I'm gonna give it to Jeff. Nate gets a second. Roll call. Andy.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Nate, yes. Okay. It is 6:11. We're gonna step into the other room for a few minutes. We'll be back shortly, folks. So it is, that was a very quick one. We'll call it 6:14. We're out of non-public. Sorry about that, folks. Just have to take care of one thing. Brian, are we back?
We're back.
Doing however it works?
Yep.
Okay,
There is a guess, but I don't.
okay. All right. So with that being said, let's see if she's. Next up, consent items. Patty, do we have?
We don't.
No consent. All right. And a nice, once school gets going, all this stuff kind of lightens up. Review of correspondence. We had a couple of emails that all pertain to an upcoming conversation we're going to be having. So I think probably the emails will get attached to the minutes. And I think we'll let the conversation occur that's going to occur and take it from there. Does that work for everybody? Okay. Let's see, Nate, I believe you are up with a presentation regarding where we are looking to go for high school.
I am. And so I guess as a starting point here, okay, in a second, just as a reminder, Zach, you and I were the negotiators for this, so it's been between us really and Sherman and not as much as the board. This is sort of a presentation to everybody, to the public, to the board. It's news for tonight. So I want to start by, I guess I'm talking about the board here. And so that's sort of where we came from. You all know well, but some of the backstory sort of.
I can certainly
see if this is going to work.
I want to run the clicker for you, Nate.
Sure. If you want to do that. So the space bar again. All right, so. Okay, so yeah, take it. Where we are as a board and what our job is to address the expiring high school contract, which as I'll show in a second the timeline behind it, but it's expiring obviously very soon. So we want to replace that as sort of before it expires. So the task is to negotiate a new, the proposed is highlighted there because it is not going to be officially determined or established until it's gone through the voters as well. So it's a proposed contract. We agreed as a board a while ago that we wanted to stick with a school of record. And so that's one of the chief requirements for us here. We could add additional schools. Once we have a school of record arrangement, then we can use tuition agreements to add additional schools to our plan. A key part here, obviously, is that the Deerfield voters, the taxpayers, need to approve it. Not just Deerfield, but also receiving school districts, any contract, other than the tuition agreement, a school of record, a contract needs to be approved by both parties, the voters in both districts. And then also needs to be approved by the state Department of Education to just make sure that students their needs are being met in the same way. Again, where we've been for the last couple of decades, those of you who haven't been closely paying attention to this, if you go back 20 years, that was a time where there was no school of record. Deerfield students were kind of all over the place in terms of they were on their own. Once they finished 8th grade, they needed to independently arrange for their high school secondary education. And so lacking the school of record, they had to apply to a bunch of schools. They had to get accepted. They had to deal with transportation. The tuition was paid by the district, but none of the supports were there from the district. There was a time around 2002 where students attended 16 different high schools. And there were events, there were incidents where there were students that were not accepted to any school. So that's something that long ago, previous school boards committed to not go back to, and that's what the contract has accomplished. And we've been committed to not go back to that as well. 2004 was when the current contract that's expiring now was approved both by the board and the voters. There was a small percentage of students that, other than sort of the 100% of graduating eighth grade students, or I should say secondary students for whom Deerfield is paying tuition, a small number below that 100% could be sent to other schools. And various different policies over the last couple of decades have kind of addressed how those students are assigned. In 2014, there was an adjustment to the agreement. It changed things like the tuition rate that Deerfield was paying to Concord at the time. It also, this arrangement did not address the lottery, but over the last couple of years, the lottery system, if for those of you who are familiar with it from 8-10 years ago, was phased out and no longer takes place. And so looking at the 2024 date coming at us, last year, beginning of last year, January-ish, we did form a committee and asked for community or community members to volunteer to be a part of that committee to help kind of help us, not necessarily make a recommendation to the board, but to help collect information, analyze data, all of that kind of stuff, which I'll get to in a second. And that committee did meet last year for about 6 months or so, and that ended right about the summertime last year. And so where we are in terms of what the decision by the board is going to look like and how we got to the decision that we're going to talk about here is really been fed by a couple different sources of information. The committee itself that I just talked about, the community, we have solicited information from the community over the last couple of years and have received some pretty clear messages. And also there's certainly legal counsel that we obviously seek as well when making these decisions. We're going to start off with the high school committee. There it is. Sorry. All right. Thank you. And so back in 2020, we asked for volunteers from the community to support us, to help us to kind of do some of the work and actually the sort of the foot work of looking at the data, looking at different
able to do more than this. So 180 responses from people who voted and were willing to give us some feedback on why this vote happened this way. And a couple questions that I pulled out of the data from that survey. I looked at some of the questions that this particular question, which said, if you voted against this $45 million bond, what changes could we have made to have brought you on board, or to have you support the project? Many of them said, well, if it didn't increase my taxes, then I would have been more on board with that, right? That was 16% of the 180 responses. Go ahead, one more. If I also looked at the responses that included just cost, not specifically taxes, but cost, almost half, it goes up to 42% of the voters said that they would have supported this if it didn't cost anything. You know, the ideas were great, but the cost was what was prohibitive to a significant portion of our voters. And then I looked into a little bit more of the detail in terms of some specific comments that people made. There weren't a lot of comments, but there were enough, I think, to get a trend here. This says from the survey, but we also, you may remember, had an informational night after that vote where we brought a bunch of people into the lunchroom cafeteria, and we got a lot of feedback. And it was consistent. A lot of the message we got was consistent with what I pulled out here. The project would have to be trimmed down to only what is necessary. Scale back plans to be only what is actually needed at this time, not asking for every extensive detail. Drop the extras like window treatments and other add-ons that, while nice to have, are not necessary when they cannot be afforded. Plan proposed was too grandiose and too expensive. I do not feel that the students needed everything in the expansion plan. Cost and overall design with a prioritizing list of actual. So what I'm seeing, what I'm pulling out of this is a theme running through here is that school choice is good. Improvements to our building are good, but the needs over the wants is what needs to be prioritized right now by the DCS, the Deerfield School. So next page, please. And that's where I summarize this, that it was not, some people did clearly vote for the expansion. Some people clearly did vote for spending $4,000 more per student for school choice. But in terms of the majority, in terms of the 60% that we need to approve this contract, most of our voters in town, there's been a strong message that cost is something we really should be paying more attention to than we've been.
Okay, good. I just want to highlight that because you lost me there for a minute with the expansion thing. But the question was like, why are we on this sidetrack? But I think that's a really important correlation. So needs versus the wants versus getting that majority to approve it.
Yeah, we need 60% to approve this. Otherwise our kids don't have a reliable high school. If our contract expires, then we have no school record. This one's going to happen. So it's something we need to be aware of. The third piece we're going to talk about here is legal counsel, that we have been okay to. We don't tend to be able to talk about legal counsel, but there is a piece here that we've been okay to share with the town. And that is that. Sorry. There we go. So one of the key things that we've had in our conversations is that the idea of paying some sort of base tuition to all students, and then those other students who can or want to or able to pay more to go to some other school, really results in a situation where we are not equitably providing education for our community members. And so this comment came from council. And it's essentially said that we'd be opening up ourselves to legal challenge if we pursued that kind of a law. And that brings us to basically our decision as a board, is that we have to sort of consider all of these different things here. We've got a lot of different people, a lot of different voices, a lot of different emails, a lot of different community members, very vocal. It's been great to hear concerns of the community, but in the end, it needs to be the board decision. And again, it needs to be a board decision that's going to be passed and approved by 60% of the voters in March. Just like the committee said that it would be great to arrange a school choice model. One of the comments during that process was that probably the only thing that's going to limit the school choice model is going to be cost. And as we look at it, that is essentially where we find ourselves, where based on last year's budget, the Concord tuition, and I've included the capital fee, which we've been paying gradually more of for the last however many years.
Life of the contract.
Life of the contract, we've been paying this capital fee. which has been used by Concord to perform capital improvements for whatever, fixing the roof, for better, lack of a better idea. But various things we've been tripping into. Co-Brown's tuition has been right there. It's at 18,000 or so. And it's changed. Obviously, they all go up over the years, but that difference has remained fairly consistent over the last few years. And so we get to this point where we've been negotiating, and that's what we're sharing right now is kind of the results of the discussions. What did we find from the different conversations with different schools and school boards? And one of them, we did talk to Co-Brown. Co-Brown is unable to adjust their tuition from town to town. So Co-Brown has said that what they charge, it's a public number, and so what they charge Stratford or Nottingham is what they'll charge Deerfield, and there's no room for negotiation. And so I can understand that model. That is the school that they run, and it works well. But what that translates to is that it would be an increase in price. What I've done here is I've put some numbers together, hypothetically illustrating what that would look like. If we did this, and if we went through a school choice model where we committed to pay whatever any student would want in terms of however many students want to go to Co-Brown, we will pay that. And I say worst case, but I mean, maybe it's great. If that's what students want, then fantastic. But from the taxpayer's perspective, this would be worst case. And that hypothetical would be that we would suddenly have 186 students jumping from Concord over to Co-Brown. And if that were to happen with a $4,000 price tag, essentially our taxpayers would be looking at, or we, the board, would be looking at budgeting an increase of $750,000 to cover that. Again, with no room to negotiate, that is what it would be. And so we can sort of clearly anticipate that if we go down that road. On the other hand, through conversations with Concord and in the language of this new contract that we're proposing right now, Concord has agreed to eliminate the capital fee. And so they recognize that, our paying into their capital maintenance was not, that was something that we could remove. It did lead to an adjustment of the tuition calculation. But what I did was I took a hypothetical here. So again, let's look at 2022, 2023. So let's say this goes through the voters and next year is the first year we're dealing with this year. If all of our students jump to Co-Brown, it would be an increase of $750,000. On the other hand, part of the deal with Concord is that they have agreed to freeze the current year of tuition. It would not increase. They would remove the capital fee. And they would do those two things. There would be a change to the tuition, so the following year it would go up a little bit more, but we can get into those numbers a little bit later. The first year we would see this clear change here that we're looking at $750,000 increase versus this new contract provides for almost $162,000 decrease in the budget the first year of the contract. I did say that again, that there's a small change to the tuition rate in exchange. And so it would approach more the sort of the market value of what the Concord education costs our students. And we'll get into those details in just a second. Questions? Does that make sense what I did here with the numbers?
Yeah, I'm interested in the future year piece,
Yes.
but we'll get into that. So.
Yes. So there were some other things that we thought about in terms of, we really want to achieve this school choice model. How could we do that? One idea would be to eliminate transportation. And if we were to just say, well, we don't have to, by law, provide high school transportation, then we could save some money by doing that. We ended up rejecting that because a couple reasons. We are already pretty far from Concord. Sure, maybe if we did that, then in the school choice model, that would move more students towards Co-Brown because it's closer. That's going to translate to more cost borne by the Deerfield taxpayers. That's all right. We are in a rural town, so not providing transportation seems unfair. And finally, 2 buses is only $150,000. It does not cover $750,000. So that would be a huge increase in cost. If we're not providing transportation, we would expect more students to pick the closer school. we'd actually be driving our costs up by doing that. So that was one idea. What about, we pay this kind of, CHS flat rate, thank you. And parents who can and are able to pay the additional $4,000, we put it on them. Go ahead, we did, obviously, like I said, the legal counsel is that would be opening ourselves up to a lawsuit because it is not equitable. State aid is equitable.
One other thing to keep in mind, Nate, the opening of the contract affects the rate of the Concord, which
Certainly true.
is yet to be discussed.
And so the proposed contract, some of the changes that are in this contract that we have looked at very briefly, but we're going to look at a little bit more in a second. Go ahead. One of the big changes you'll see is that it is a 20-year contract and it's with Concord. And it does include withdrawal clauses, very similar to the previous contract. It does reopen to renegotiation after 12 years. The one that was started 20 years ago opened for negotiation after 10 years. This one is 12 years. So very similar in that regard to the previous contract, but not the same. Saves money, very important here, for taxpayers, which is by eliminating the capital fee, and like I said, freezing tuition costs for the first year. It does adjust tuition calculations like we were talking about to sort of get closer to the actual. I would say that part of the reason the capital fee was there was because we were paying below the market rate. So this does get closer to the actual costs of educating the Concord student to Concord. And part of the language in here, we'll talk about increasing connections and opportunities for DCS students to see, to connect with, to meet, and to experience Concord. Totally, voluntarily and all that, but during middle school, 7th and 8th grade years. And they were also open to, there's no hard language, firm language in the contract that addresses transportation, but during our conversations, Concord was open to the possibility of helping us keep a bus here, helping us provide for transportation, maybe being able to run a late bus. Those kinds of possibilities are there with some assistance from Concord to help with transportation too. And so we're going to talk about this in a second, but next steps would be it does need to provide the DOE. I'm not sure the timetable on that. Do we send it out after?
Yeah, we would send it and then as soon as they can get it on an agenda.
Okay.
No,
Hopefully in the near future that would happen. It would need to be approved by Deerfield voters, hopefully in March 2023. And Concord voters, but they wouldn't vote, they're voting like right now, right?
The board decides.
Oh, the board, they didn't go to the voters.
Right.
Okay. And then if it is defeated, we would go back to negotiations, and without something passing, then our current contract would expire in 2024. We would lose the school record to take some steps to try to. That's it. All I got.
So we have, I guess it's an opportunity for the board to kind of discuss and rehab what's in this. And I think one of the things that's important for us to talk about is this recalculation of the way the tuition is kind of gone through. So during the negotiating process, Nate and I have been reporting back to the board as a whole, and the board's been providing us with kind of a continual feedback loop of what the priorities were that the board had. And then as we've been working on trying to find those, find our way to that process, we've been updating them along the way. So a big thing when the decision was made to try to figure out kind of the current path we're proposing here was trying to make the tuition rate setting as fair and honest as it can be for the folks in Deerfield as well as for the folks in Concord. So part of that process was looking at the way that the rates calculated. And so as Nate highlighted, one of the things that's been in our tuition rate for a long time has been this capital fee, which has been basically our portion of Concord's capital expenses for the high school. So by removing that, it does create a fairly significant savings for us. And it puts us in a place where The calculation basically works out, we are paying more or less what Concord pays to educate a high school student. And then the real differentiation there becomes that average of the last 5 years of increases, because the rate is calculated off of their state submissions from the previous year. So that average of the last 5 years is hopefully to bring us to what their actual cost will be. So it's a very fair contract,
So
financially for us. Go ahead.
I think that this is gonna get lost in the weeds for a lot of people listening, so I think it's really important that we talk slow and clearly about how the tuition rate was calculated. Right. So they
Was or
essentially,
would be,
what?
was or how it will be.
Both, right?
Okay.
The biggest change is that they're taking the average of 5 years now of expenditures versus an average of
Of increases.
increases.
Yeah.
So they're looking at a 5-year bucket constantly. So if they have a high expenditure year, it's gonna come on sooner, but also come off quicker.
Mhm.
Right? Do we have any kind of, I know it's really hard and ambiguous, but do we have any kind of insight as to what that impact might look like?
I don't think we're gonna see much of a variance. So that calculation has always been there. It's just been calculated on a 10-year. Look at that rolling average.
Yep.
I think it's been relatively consistent. We haven't seen any odd bumps and blips in that calculation. That was something we talked about quite a while, trying to kind of look at that. And it really does, the on and the off is the flip side of that, right? So, you know, if they have a high increase year, we're gonna live with it for a little bit. But again, we're getting as close to a real cost as possible. We're not, they are backing transportation, special education costs out of the equation as well.
Yeah.
So it's the cost for a general education student, not the total cost for their entire school information. Our special education students are billed appropriately. So it's on the contract. This also does guarantee that every one of our kids has a place to go to school. And I think it's important for us to note, we have spent a tremendous amount of time talking to parents. And we have consistently heard from families. Experience with Concord has been positive. CRTC has been positive. Gigi's in? Okay, so very quickly, so Gigi, at least
Make a motion to stay.
somebody second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is Gigi there? She can hear us? Maybe?
That needs to be-
Is that
Yes, and roll call on any future votes.
and roll calling? All right. Is Gigi there? Gigi, if you can hear us, talk to us. If not, Brian's gonna try to make it work, otherwise we're gonna continue on with the discussion. Okay. So we've heard, you know, overwhelmingly for years, kind of a very consistent theme is that experience with Concord has been positive. We have to represent the entire town when we look at some of these decisions. And so being cognizant of potential costs is something that obviously we have to look at as well. And I think we heard one, something.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, out of all the conversation, there's very strong opinions, you know. But I can say that in all of the conversations we've had with Concord High School students, Concord High School families, we didn't have a single Concord High School student or family reach out to us and say, this was a horrible experience, this was X, Y, or Z. It's been the exact opposite, which is great to hear since that's where we've been sending them. you know, I think that the biggest challenge we have living in such a rural community is that fear for our kids of the jump from a small town to Concord. But when we hear time and time again from people that engage and participate with us that, yeah, we all had that feeling, we all had that fear, got there, and it's good. And I can speak to the fact that, you know, I was one of those grades at DCS that had to apply to high school, and there were kids that didn't get into a high school. And I remember, like, you know, how bizarre that process was, how lucky, you know, some of us were that got in where we want to go. And that certainly, you know, is not an option. And I think at the end of the day, taking all of that in aggregate, what you said, looking at how the taxpayers respond to things we put in front of them, and it's at the end of the day, it's costs, and it's the wants and the needs versus costs. And when we're able to bring costs down a little, you know, I think that's great. I do think we should, you know, dive maybe into the, you know, involvement Concord's going to have with our students. Let's see.
Yeah, we can definitely kind of hit on that. I think we had a lot of conversations with the negotiation. We spent a lot of time with that. And certainly, one of the things they came to us with that we kind of, actually, I think we both came together on it, was this increasing participation with our students when they're in middle school, so that they feel before they get to Concord like they really are Concord students. Because genuinely, when they get to high school, it's not Concord students over here and Deerfield's kids are over here. They're a cohesive bunch, and our students are Concord High School students, and they're brought into that community arms. So one of the things that we talked about was kind of increasing this outreach and involving not just our 8th grade students like we have been for a number of years, but helping Concord students as well. We can hear, Gigi, can you hear us?
I can, and I have been able to hear you for the whole time, but I wasn't unmuted, but Brian got it.
So, okay, cool. So, we did, Gigi, you heard us, we made a motion to allow you to participate, but we do have to roll call any votes that we take while you're with us. Okay?
Yes.
All right, cool. So, I mean, that was a big part of the conversation, was how do we, you know, we want to increase this engagement with our students with Concord High School at an earlier point, really help build that sense of belonging, that sense of community with Concord, because that's, I think, a very important thing. And I think that can help reduce a lot of the apprehension that some of the families of the young kids have. I think what we find in a lot of cases is, and I can't tell you how many parents have said to me when their kids were real young, Concord is this big scary place, and then afterwards they say, make sure all my kids get to go to Concord, right? And so it's been a very common. So I think that's going to be an important thing, and I think that will help a lot of the families and a lot of the kids really kind of see Concord a little bit differently, being exposed to Concord and kind of build that sense of community. I don't know if you have any point.
Yeah, and it's not just a sense of community, but there's so many things that Concord has to offer that I think that the more that we can get involved, I think you're right. Then our students, our community will see just some amazing opportunities in Concord. Not just the community, but lots of in terms of activities, in terms of sports, in terms of
CRTC.
CRTC.
I mean, it's a huge thing. So,
Yeah.
We look. Gigi, you must be in a hurry somewhere.
Oh, no, sorry about that. Maybe you need to mute me. I am in an outside venue because it's where I can get Wi-Fi in Groton, Vermont.
You're good. You're good, Gigi.
Okay, sorry.
So I think it is important that we kind of work with that. A lot of the other, that was really one of the biggest talking points we had was how to build that bridge. between us and- So the process moving forward.
Did you have any questions?
Gigi, do you have any questions or have you been able to kind of keep up as we've been? going through it?
Well, I had trouble getting in because I'm siphoning Wi-Fi off of the public library. But I'm sorry, I only jumped in at the end of Nate's presentation. So many of my questions might have been covered in Nate's presentation. But I think the points that you've brought up are important. I think that so many other options that we looked at, and I apologize, Nate, if you brought this up, but many of them had equity issues to them. And I think that it is a responsibility for us as well to make sure that our options for high school are equitable, at least the most equitable that we can create without having a high school in our town.
Yeah, that was mentioned a few times. We did receive legal counsel to that effect, but also that was a priority, both with discussing things like busing options and just also recognizing that we want to have as much choice as possible. The committee did talk about how Concord is such a diverse place that it has options for everybody, which was pretty apparent in looking at the data and the profile of the school. But yes, we definitely kept the concerns and the ideas of equity at the front of our conversations.
Great, thank you.
So our process now moving forward is going to be, the board's going to take action. Contract as we've presented. From there, Concord will effectively be doing the same thing. It goes to the State Department of Ed and legal counsel. Legal counsel will draft warrant articles that are appropriate for the contract, for the community to vote on in March. I want to make sure that we stress this is something that has been a couple of years now in the works. So, we do hear periodically from time to time, there's a group in the community that wanted us to really find a way to open choice. And we certainly have heard that, and we have looked and explored and tried to find a way to get there, but we also have to look at financial ramifications and a number of other factors when we make these decisions. So they're not always, not always easy decisions to make, but we have to do what we feel is in the best interest of the community, the students, the staff, and everything else when we make these decisions. So before I seek a motion, is there additional conversation or discussion?
I think also in the timeline is going to be some sort of a community forum night or something. We do want to make sure that we have a chance to hear community concerns, answer questions.
Discuss the contract as it's written. Obviously, the budget committee's going to have understanding as well. And I suspect that will be an upcoming work session. So for anybody that is here or that is listening, we're trying to structure our meeting. So the first meeting of the month is really the business meeting. The second meeting of the month is more working sessions for a number of the projects that we have going on. And trying to really allow ourselves an opportunity to dive deeply into certain things in these working sessions. Obviously, we've had some stuff going on. It's just something we tried to start really before COVID, and then COVID basically flipped everything upside down. So we're trying to get back into that procedure of events. So obviously tonight's our business meeting, so we'll kind of handle those business related items. This is something if we want to get into in the next meeting, we can kind of form and discuss. If we want to give it a little bit of an opportunity to dwell in the community and allow the, maybe wait for October, I will let the board kind of solicit feedback from the board in that regard. That ultimately, I think, is something we can discuss.
About when to do a community. event.
But yeah, and maybe we do a couple. But I certainly think, answering as many of those questions that we can about the contract and why and how we got there as a community.
Yeah, I think it's, part of me thinks sooner rather than later is better, so we can quickly, squelch any misinformation. One of my concerns is that there's gonna be a ton of misinformation about this, well, they could do school choice, it's send the tuition. And the differences between, kind of the three options we had, which was the school of record, school of choice, here's your X amount of dollars, pay the difference, which legal counsel has told us is not allowed, right? Or the town.
Not advisable.
Right, so like those type of conversations that I feel like outside of this meeting on social media are gonna blow up and get confused and people are gonna get misinformation. So I think for that reason, it's really important that we act on this and stay engaged. And don't wait till October. This,
I certainly, we haven't pinned down the next, really didn't have anything on the next agenda yet.
Just goals.
Goal setting, it's really the one thing. But we can clearly,
Do a form at the beginning, and then do work on your goals.
yeah,
so what we want to do,
I think
seeing,
that's a good idea.
all right, so we can do that.
I can have this posted tomorrow so that
Okay.
people can look at it.
Yeah.
And do you want to post your presentation?
Yep.
If you want to send that to me, I'll put that as well.
And then can we put that, that'll go on the SAU site, is it possible to put that on the DCS site as well in case anybody decides that's what?
And the town site?
The town, Linky,
So we can post either a synopsis of the presentation contract to the town website, and we can also update the FAQ document on the school website.
you have that,
So you wouldn't post a PowerPoint to the school, it would be just a synopsis, you said, just like a narrative or something? All the stuff that I said, just condensed down to a few.
I think it's like, I think,
put a link to the meeting there too,
oh, wow.
high tech.
I think you can attach files. I don't remember the exact file types, but worst case, we just save it as like a PDF.
Just PDF and send it
Yeah,
to you.
Yep. And I'll post the full documents on the website, the contract and the PowerPoint.
So with that being said, I'll make a motion that we approve the contract as presented tonight.
Second.
We have additional discussion regarding that. So Gigi, are you there?
I am there. Yep.
Did you hear the motion?
I heard the motion.
Good. You want to cast the first vote? Because I have to do it.
Any more conversation first?
Oh, sorry. Do we have any more conversation? None? All right. Gigi, do you want to cast the first vote?
Yes.
Yes. you
And
do?
yes and yes.
All right. Andy,
yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
myself, yes. Nate? All right, so we will start that work, and for anybody in the community that's listening, we will have we'll call it a question and answer for lack of a better term, at the start of our next meeting in 2 weeks, which will put us at the 21st of February.
Meantime, these documents.
February.
Wow, I lost 6 months.
Wow.
What month is it? September?
It's September.
Why don't we shoot for the 21st of September?
You mail it in the rest of the year, so.
I am checking out. All right. Anything else from the board on this? And now that this contract will be posted on our website, et cetera, as we discussed, so anybody that wants to see it will be able to look there probably sometime tomorrow afternoon. Okay,
Is it with all the changes or is it like the red line version?
I'll do the red line version so people can see. Yeah.
all right. So for anybody that does go look at this and read it, the
Is
changes.
that okay?
Yeah.
The red line so people can see exactly what we.
You'll see the red line version, which is basically the working copy with the amendments, as we kind of work through the old one. Okay, let's see. We have a modular update.
We do. So the last conversation that we had was wanting to potentially purchase the modulars if they were going to allow us to split the payment over 2 fiscal years, and they are not willing to do that. So they are looking for a signed lease that has now expired. They did agree to freeze the rate and not increase it, but they would expect payment upfront if we were going to purchase them.
So this brings us back to the, let's call it a $200, what was it, $128,000 question?
Yeah, 60 something each year.
So the
62,750.
Okay.
That's it.
Wait, 64.
We just want to roll on.
Definitely lightens the mood. I mean,
I don't know what you are, GT, but I love it. I love everything about it.
Just drag racing, I thought I heard an airplane.
I love airplanes, you know me. So the question before the board is, we have, effectively a $32,000 lease payment due that's budgeted for, that we can certainly sign the contract and send. We had hoped that they would accept our kind of proposal to split the acquisition over the course of 2 budget years. But they don't want to do that. So we can either draw the funds and buy them, or we can continue leasing. But we're doing something today, right?
Mhm.
Okay, Patty says we're doing it today. Jeffrey, go.
So I think from just an abstract, logical approach, nothing's changed as far as the math goes and like the fiscal decision, right? It was a good decision month and a half, 2 months ago, whatever it was. Obviously stretching out the payments would have been nice because it would have been such a hit to the budget. But I would maintain that year 4 is our break-even point. Year 5 is, we're making money. So the question is, has anything changed in our calculus to make us think that we're gonna have an expansion project of some sort done before that time period that we can eliminate the modulars? Right, that's the real question that I think we need to answer. Has anything changed fundamentally? Whether you think we're gonna get more aggressive in pursuing the expansion project?
I was just gonna say, can we theorize on what we think the timeline would be? If we proposed an expansion again, like this upcoming
So
cycle?
if we let the cat out of the bag, doesn't appear we're doing anything for this upcoming 23 election, expansion wise. So we've let that, figure that out already. So that puts the 23 vote completely out of the question. So the first vote would be 24. You'd be looking at a theoretical passage of 24, so 24 to 25 would be the design, construction docs, construction would start in, Jeff, if you're keeping up, right, 26, with probably a year or 2 years construction. See 27.
Yeah, so, I mean, if we look through it here, Andy, right, here's where we are today, right?
Yeah.
This year is out. So this is, March of 24. So 23-24 school year is out because it wouldn't be until March of 24, which means that here we start working on our design build, right?
And that's what, a year and a half already into the potential acquisition.
Still very slow. But I don't-
Well, just doing those calculations.
Actually, I was gonna suggest too, that if you do work it out and it's still beneficial to wait a year, it would give you the opportunity to put it as a warrant and ask the voters if they want to purchase the modulars.
I think splitting it over 2 years made a little more sense to the budget, but I agree, nothing's changed with that calculus, but what has is that taking 124 out of this year's default budget. It's not, I think, a wise move. And when we spend that kind of money without asking the voters, I think people get upset. So I think this is something that I would rather send to the voters.
So the question then becomes, is we lease it this year, we ask them for an updated purchase price, and we warrant article it in, that's warrant article, whatever. And we could even potentially write the warrant article, fund it out of surplus in the event there was a surplus. You keep up with that, Jeff?
I'm also just plans. Right, so that's, and then March 20. I mean, there's no way on March 24th vote that we're gonna break ground in April, May of 25.
So at that point, it's another.
Right. April, May of 26. I hear what you're saying, Nate. But
Can we draw this out of the, we can't draw this off of one of the funds if we want to do. This has to be.
And I don't know where we would take it, like Nate said, out of the default budget.
break ground 26.
What's the length of the lease? Is it?
So it's a 12-month lease of consent. It's $32,000.
Yeah, we're doing it year by year at this point.
For the learning cottages.
So obviously to complicate things, can we pay the 1-year lease and then put something into the warrant to,
I think we just had that
is that what you were just saying?
conversation. I think that's probably the most prudent course of action at this point.
So the time-
As much as I would say, if I look at it from we should have bought them 10 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever, when they got rolled into town on a temporary basis. Because the cost probably wasn't a whole lot different for that cottage 20 years ago. So we probably should have bought them then and have just owned them until we were done. We didn't, so that ship has kind of sailed. So the question then becomes is, you know, we as a board have tried to right a couple of wrongs that, you know, we've uncovered over the years. And that may be one of them, but I think Nate's approach, and I think maybe writing a warrant article that draws the funds off surplus in the event, you know, we get a purchase price, we write the warrant article and we just request to buy them, and it's an easy thing to explain. $32,000 a year, it's a 3-year return.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as far as just kind of like doing our timeline out here, I think the soonest we'd be able to move out of those is, you know, September of 27. Check.
Soonest. And I think even proposing, I don't know if proposing classrooms or bathrooms is gonna pass right now either. So I think there might still be another,
That's the thing, right? So we're safe in that even if we did 4 classrooms glommed on with bathrooms, right? Absolute bare minimum. I don't see it happening sooner than September 27th. So whether we buy them or we don't, we're gonna spend $128,000, whatever it is.
That much is foregone. So I agree with you, Nate. The question is, do we risk our budget this year? Or send it to the taxpayers?
on the side.
Yeah, I mean, we're, the bitter pill to swallow there is we're potentially wasting
Should have been done. 10 years
$32,000.
ago.
Yeah, okay. So is there a motion on the table?
Hey, you wanna make a motion?
We're gonna sign the lease,
Yeah, I
basically.
guess it's the
Yeah.
move to sign the lease to
Mhm.
renew for a year with both modulars.
Somebody want to second it?
Second. Is that contingent on a agreed upon price potentially?
No.
Already given us the price.
We have the price to lease it, the money's in the budget anyway, carry it over.
No, I meant like half the year of.
Ship sales.
I guess
Did you second that?
so. I guess the question I have is, you know, we are in a default budget. Since I've been on the board, it's always been a wacky budget year because of COVID and grants and everything else. But in your guys' experience, who have been here longer, you know, how often is there a surplus that we are able to return? And let's have an honest and frank discussion about that before we just.
So historically speaking, in my eight-ish years on the board, we've had a surplus every year. They've ranged from a couple 100,000 up to, the peak was what, 6 and change one year?
Even more than that, I think.
Was it? So we've been very fortunate. We've always had a surplus, but that, I think, goes a lot to the diligence of Trish counting every nickel everywhere. So-
It's varying reasons.
But-
Sometimes high school tuition, sometimes special ed.
Right.
It's-
The problem is you can't count on it. You don't know, and so like finding $30,000 in the budget or $34,000 in the budget is much different than finding 210,000 additional,
Especially right now. in
especially right now.
September,
'cause
Not
it's-
knowing.
Yeah.
Right, so I mean, if we were able to make this, we're looking at this in May. And we were projecting a $400,000 budget, fund balance. We'd have a little bit more confidence, but at this point in the year, we're just kind of getting cracking into the expensive part of the year. School's open, oil's going up, so I probably want to err on a more conservative side.
Buildings falling apart.
Well, we're
Which
fixing
we
that.
have money for, right? And so we have a fund for that.
All right.
Right, so like we used to always say, just playing devil's advocate here,
Sound like I used to.
in the 2 years that I've been on here, whatever, the concern was always, do we return the surplus to X, Y, or Z because we need that rainy day cushion? Well, we now have that cushion for something catastrophic. We know what our,
Do you mean the trust fund? Oh, you mean for the building?
yeah,
But we couldn't use that for special ed.
for a special ed costs?
Yeah.
Sure, but
That's where you go broke quick in education.
agreed. But I would ask, it's only the second week of school, but do we have any big, oh wow, surprises that we weren't anticipating when we did our budget last year?
We couldn't even tell that at this point because we're literally still getting programs set up and settling where students are, all of that. Kids are still coming and going from registrations. It's
Too early.
way too early.
So our numbers swung by what, 17 kid, we increased enrollment 17 kids, right? So there's a potential liability in there, right?
And what I will say to you, to that tone though, and this is something I probably say every year at the budget committee, or to the budget committee is. One situation moves to town and it could come with $100,000 or $200,000 expenditure.
Yep.
Now, on the flip side of that, family leaves town and then could free up a $100,000 or $200,000 expenditure. So. I'm typically the least conservative.
I don't know that you can do anything safely other than approve the lease for this year and then see where you're at a little bit longer into the year and decide if you're gonna.
What I would want to do with this is I would want to approve the lease, ask them for a guaranteed buyout number for, we'll call it July 1. And at that point, when we get towards the end of the school year, we have a number, we're looking at a significant fund balance, we have the ability to exercise it. Presumably, we're going to put something on the ballot, and if it's on the ballot, put it on the ballot, if it's on the ballot and it passes and it's done, if it's on the ballot and it fails, and we're not buying it anyway, it is. No other community can see. If they say no, no means no.
I hear you, I disagree, but I don't think I'm gonna convince anyone else. So.
All right. Any other discussion? Gigi, is Gigi still with us?
Yeah.
You there, Gigi?
I am here.
Any additional commentary on the current discussion?
Would the warrant article idea, all that would be a separate motion, or do we need to adjust the
I
budget?
think we just get into that when we hit warrant article season. I think the immediate thing right now is we need to
Sign the lease.
sign the leases.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Patty said. I think that's kind of all the only, that's what we're in the position to do safely right now.
All right. Let's call this one. Gigi, you want to go first?
Yes, I.
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
Yes, so 4-1. Jeff was the dissenting.
Andy?
Jeff was the dissenting vote.
Jefferson.
All right. And enrollment update, we have the updated numbers that Patty provided to us.
Mrs. Withy,
Well, that came from you.
I was the courier.
So we did it at a previous meeting, asked, this is the same document we see over and over and over again, but it has our current enrollment. This is not the number that we reported to the state because that happens on October 1st. This is as of the start of school. We are at 528 students, which has brought us up from last year's number of 511. So we are plus 17, so it's back on the rise. We'll call it post-pandemic. Questions regarding that? I mean, I looked through it, everything kind of looks like it's a fairly even disbursement of where the kids are, and class sizes are all relatively similar.
Is we get a principal report about the, was it kindergarten?
We have an assistant principal report.
Yeah.
Short and sweet.
Is that in there, the kindergarten situation?
You mean first grade, I think.
There was, is it first grade?
Yes.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Been there?
I can put it in there.
It is now.
It is now, or do you want to just address it now if there's a question, if it's enrolled?
Yeah, you can, I mean, I can address it now.
It was just, how is it working?
So essentially, we were unable to find a long-term sub for the maternity leave. We made the decision with many voices in the building to split that class of 16 and put 8 and 8 in the other rooms. Essentially, we had no other choice. And we are fortunate that prior to this decision, we had paras assigned to kindergarten, and then we were able to disperse them, keep 2 in kindergarten and bring 2 up to first grade. And that was, again, planned for this school year. So it worked out to our benefit. So there's 1 in each room. So essentially 2 adults are in that room, those 2 rooms right now. And then when we go, when the maternity leave is over, those 2 paras will still stay, and they'll just float between the 3 rooms. Yep. So, and those kids that were split, they are actually attending IAs as their original homeroom because it would create havoc to the schedule. So it's to do piece removed and would have been awful. So,
Or you like that?
no, not at this point, it's clear.
Any initial feedback on the size of classes? Is 24 too
it's-
much, or is it working out?
It's working out. And we actually, and our math and reading specialists are also pushing in and providing services at that time as well. So there's a lot of support in those rooms.
Anything else? All right, there's no action to be taken, obviously, so we're gonna roll on to Brian, are you gonna give us any facility?
Chris said that everything was updated into the drive. You guys should have had the recent, the last thing was, I believe last week, was about the timeline of the new septic. So that looks like it's being pushed out towards the end of the month. Pavement, we are still avoiding the buses on the new pavement. So they are not turning around on pavement. We have a whole procedure going out back. It's quite orchestrated. I don't get to see it because I'm out front, but essentially we're avoiding having the buses on there for the month of September per the pavement company, so we don't mess up the actual pavement.
It'll stay live for quite a while.
Yes, correct. So, Chris had some concerns about the water flow coming off the hill, but the guy said, give it some time and everything needs to settle and should work itself out. So, but he has been in touch with them about that, his concern.
The, maybe you're gonna get it out, but the upper field, one of the 2 leach beds is on. It's been inspected. The second leach bed is being built or excavated, I guess, currently still. I think it's very important that we point out the level of undesirable materials that were placed in that hill, and that our existing septic systems that have been built on top of is atrocious. So we have had to undertake a significant amount of remediating of materials that shouldn't have been there, shouldn't have been underneath septic systems, and it should not have been done this way 20 or 30 years ago. Which has been unfortunate because what is in the ground up there shouldn't be in the ground. Which is what has stretched the timetable out. What was in the ground underneath the parking lot down below shouldn't have been done the way it was done 30 years ago. So it's being corrected properly, but it's definitely, it's become certainly a more involved project. I think towards the end of the month, we should have the second field up and kick in, and then rock and roll and cover and season from there.
Is there a anticipated time when sports can resume on the field? Are we missing the whole soccer
So it's
season?
on soccer season. Well, I can kind of, want me to talk about that now? So essentially what's going on with soccer season is we are busing kids, players are taking the Parks and Rec bus because there's room on that over to Bicentennial Field for practices. Home games are going to be at Hartford Brook. So thankfully Parks and Rec are very generous and they've been, Eric over there has been great working with us to try to figure out a solution. Field is not what you would normally play on, but there are smaller fields in our Southeast League. So we're not the smallest field. So the goals are not being scored by the goalie. So, so today was the first practice. Kind of went off without a hitch, knock on wood. So, but there will only be one practice per team over at Bicentennial because games start next week. It's a quick start to the season. So
it's what, a game and a practice each week, basically,
essentially a game, 2 games and 1 practice
each week.
Yep. So
The kids happy to be playing them, so
they are happy to be playing. Yep.
that's all that
So,
matters.
yeah. And Bicentennial Field wasn't flooded supposedly today, so that's a good thing. So part of it.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, so Jeff, go ahead.
Under facility updates, should we talk about the letter from the assistant chief?
About,
All the, because I saw a bunch of desks and stuff out.
Oh, the storage, Brian can probably talk about.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So out back, we cleaned out the shed. When the shed was built, it was kind of right around the COVID time. Haphazardly, everything was thrown in there, and then we got the pods. And when we had to shrink the rooms, and that was all put into the pods. So in the process of cleaning, we removed everything from the shed, kept all the items that were not originally from George B. White, because there's quite a lot of items that are in there. It's like Miss Nelson's like, I used that table 30 years ago in George B. White. So we kind of cleaned shop. We just got a dumpster delivered today. We've been waiting on that for a few days. So we have a lot of items out there that are just old and beat up, and their time has come and gone.
is there a steel drive going on this year where we can,
We are trying to get some parents to get something going, so they got a few more days before we start filling that dumpster.
or it goes in the dumpster?
Correct, yep.
And then the assumption is based on whatever we saw from the chief, stuff that's being stored on the stairwell still will make its way. up.
Yeah, we're working on that, yep. Yeah, the storage, I mean, right now, the bottom part of the shed is pretty full. So
Should have built it bigger.
should have built a bigger shed.
There's an expansion.
Yeah, too.
Thank you.
But part of the problem now too is some of the stuff that's in where the stairs are is stuff that you wouldn't put out in the shed because it's just stuff that items that are used on a daily basis. So we're cleaning shop here, but a lot of the items, we just don't know where to put them because there's no room and they're used on a daily basis. So
I think it's important to remind the staff that it is okay. I'm married to a teacher, I can say this. It's okay to throw things away.
we encourage that.
Okay.
Can I ask one other question?
No, you're all done.
Where are we at with the fire alarm?
So I think, last conversation I had with Chris was the schedule was being worked out, and basically they're going to be doing work during the vacation weeks. So they'll come in, they'll crank all week, basically run all the new wiring, which is what the bulk of the work for that project is gonna be, is really just rewiring all the devices. And then they'll follow up after all the wiring's in, they'll come in during the next pause, depending on how quickly they get that done. Put the units in, all the devices in.
There was an email today, I think, if I can find it quickly, that everything, he had ordered everything, all the wiring and everything, and he was gonna have, I forget what day, he was gonna have the plan to Chris, kind of mapping out when he would do the work.
Should we have our FPE running point in front of Chris on this? Make sure like permits have been submitted to the fire marshal.
They've been included in emails, everybody's been
Okay,
in there, Matt, everybody.
including the fire protection engineer?
Who, they're working with,
They're under.
LBA, right?
Yeah,
Yep, they've
okay.
all been on there,
Okay.
yeah. They've been doing a good job.
So I think
Board
everybody's
meeting.
on the same page now with the plan. And,
So the update from today from Tim was I'm meeting with the installation crew this coming week to get a plan together. From there, I'll formalize and submit. I've already ordered the necessary project materials and have them coming to my shop as they become available. That's an update. It's not really an update.
42 weeks later.
Right.
All right, and then the only other outstanding items, and I guess if we're just real quick, so from a facility standpoint, big projects, obviously, septic system, fire alarm panel. We're gonna start working on what will hopefully be a roof project for next summer. That's gonna be a project we start working on over the winter to do next summer, barring any unforeseen stuff occurring. And then we are waiting on the final engineering for the parking lot.
Yep.
Which we should see any day now. So once we get that from
Each.
Keach Nordstrom, we will be developing a plan and inviting the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board to come have a conversation with us. But those are gonna be the big projects that we are looking to accomplish between now and start the school year.
Is that, yeah, it just came in, no, it just came in today and I sent it to you. I'm sure you haven't had a chance to look. So Chris did reach out and mention that, our current snow plow provider, Mr. Fisher, offered to roll the contract for another year and hold his price. I told Chris that I would mention it tonight, but that the board may still be looking for 3 bids before making that decision. But I told him I would mention that and give that information.
The rates from the East Coast have been phenomenal all along, and if he's holding them with the increases in fuel and everything else that we've seen, I think we should go forward with it.
Remember correctly, last time we submitted a RFP, I don't think we had too many responses.
It's a weird spot for a commercial snow contractor.
Just wanted to mention that for,
They use a loader on our,
He sends a,
If he needs to do snow removal, he will.
okay, so, but plow trucks 95% of the time.
I can say it's always done. And I know that there's additional equipment across the street if he gets it.
Yeah, he has been very generous in the past with sending a piece of equipment over and removing snow and not really charging us for that.
So if we want to do that, I guess we'll just be a motion to extend this contract.
existing price for an additional year. And then discuss next year.
Up to bid or whatever.
Flat costs.
Any takers? Anybody?
I'll move to extend this year's snow cut removal contract.
It's East Coast.
East Coast? Yeah, it's-
Did we roll it last year? Or did we put it out to bid last year?
Did we do 2 years with him?
I believe we did 2 years with
I
them.
think we did a 2-year contract, so it would have been up this year. So it went out to bid 2 years.
And I think we only got one other person. I think we only had them one bid.
Yeah, I don't see anyone coming in lower than the contract was at 2 years ago.
I can tell you, doing what I do for a living,
Yeah.
it's going up anywhere else. Because the cost of the stuff to do it has gone up 25 to 30%.
Need seconds.
We need a second. Who wants it?
Jeff, now,
Jeff got it? Additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
roll call.
Eugene,
Yeah, I,
sorry.
No worries.
Jeff,
Yes.
myself, yes. Nate? Aye. Okay, 5-0. We're done with facility stuff, guys. Gigi, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep forgetting about you, but I'm sorry.
We're not forgetting about you.
We're not forgetting about you.
no worries, no worries.
We're on the half home stretch. The only reports that we have, so we struck the executive board report and the CRP report because they haven't occurred yet. But we do potentially have a PTO update.
Sure.
You got one for us?
Sounds up here.
I love it. All right, let's have it.
So it's our favorite time of year, school's back. So we're already busy. We have a meeting on September 20th. So if anyone wants to join us, we would really love to have some additional faces. We're planning a lot of our fall fun stuff, our scarecrow contest, the pet costume contest. That was a big hit last year. So I'm really looking forward to doing that again. And of course, we have the townwide yard sale coming up. So that's a big fundraiser for us. It's October 8th. So hopefully everyone's seen the link to get a spot on the map, or you can just send in a check to school and we'll get you on the map. We'll also do the donations where the PTO sells all the stuff that people donate as well. So that really helps boost our fundraising for that event. I think that's it. Like, we're busy, but oh yeah, we'll do the sock fundraiser. We're getting people to sign up because they have to create the website for us. So I've got a list of names of people that already said that they're interested in participating in this one. So that'll be coming out really soon. I think I mentioned it last time. It's the fun socks, you know, the dogs and the yoga and avocados and tacos.
So I think it's important for us to thank PTO for the barbecue doesn't happen without you guys. So
Oh, we're happy to help.
thank you guys for everything you do. And certainly, there's no way it works without everybody's help. So thank you very much. So that's one of my favorite days of the year. As a school board member. It's one of the few days I don't get yelled at.
I have another favorite day for you.
What's
You
that?
don't know it yet. It's called Medal Day because it's an 8th grade fundraiser. I think there might be some 8th grade parents in this room,
Nominate.
and it's not me this year.
You beat me to it. I was,
It's really great. I'm sure you have equipment, trailers. You just load it on up and you take it over to Harding and you say it's for 8th grade at DCS.
Haul it over to Harding.
Piece of cake.
That's it, huh?
They got to know me and it was kind of embarrassing after a while.
Frequent flying.
Yes.
All right, I feel like we're gonna get.
Bring those catalytic converters.
Those are worth more. Put those aside because they're worth more and you take them to the special place. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much. We're just gonna call it Brian's report.
all right. System principal report. All right, so this covers August 18th through today. August 18th, we had all 4 middle school subcommittees. As you know, we've been doing work all summer. And we had additional people, we had specialists in IAs, so it was a great gathering of the minds. And that work was to continue our next steps in preparation for the start of this year, but also looking forward. So we've been off to a good start with that. Thursday and Friday, August 25th and 26th, we welcome back all our staff for our PD days. It was great to have everybody back in the building. Thursday, August 25th, as most people know, is our open house and our back to school barbecue. So a big thank you to the PTO and to all of you guys and Gigi for cooking. And to Meredith, our food director, for purchasing and getting all the food organized and all that. And then we were able to use the leftover food on Friday. I took over your role and we grilled up 100 more hamburgers for our staff on that day.
That's awesome.
So it's fun. Monday, August 29th, we welcome back all our students for this 2022, 2023. I can see why Miss Whitty fumbles over that all the time, school year. Wednesday, August 31st, we welcomed our middle school families in for our middle school community meeting. This is something we've wanted to do in the past. We had talked about it again pre-COVID and it didn't really get off. But we had a decent turnout and we're hoping that word of mouth that we can kind of beef that up a little bit more as we go forward and modify that and get some more parents out for that night. We hope that everybody had a nice Labor Day. And yesterday was our instrumental music rental evening with Mrs. Davis and Mr. Trong. Didn't have a huge turnout, but partially that because a lot of siblings are currently in the band, so there's no real reason to show up if you know the drill. So upcoming, we have picture day this Friday. Wednesday, September 14th, we have our demonstrated success. They will begin our work with our tier 1 team meeting. And later in the month, they'll be here for the tier 2 to get that all up and running. Wednesday, September 14th is our cross country event here, which is always a great event. We will be modifying it because of the field, but with Ms. Laskowski, she's kind of removing herself as the head coach, and we have two new coaches. Martha Borowski has always been our assistant coach / head coach, but we have our new 8th grade teacher, Mr. Jose Luciano. He is taking over for Sue, and she's kind of walking him through all these baby steps in order to graduate him into full coaching position. And then Friday, September 16th is our 5th grade field trip, and they are going up Mount Major. So hopefully the weather is nice for them. And then that will bring us to our next report. And
September. Any questions?
Yes.
Can you talk a little more about the middle school community meeting?
Yes, so we saw a need for just providing additional information for parents about middle school in general, about Alma, about the grading system, just the daily life. We used to do this on the open house night, and it was kind of chaotic. We would kind of get everybody into the cafeteria. It would be extremely packed, overcrowded. People's minds were not there, kids running around. So this meeting, we did not invite students. It was just for parents only. We actually were surprised by how many 7th and 8th grade families. We suspected it'd be more 6th grade families, but it was pretty even across the board. A little bit more with 6th grade families, but and essentially they got to meet the teachers individually in their respective grade level, and they got to see their syllabi and things of that nature. So and just talk a little bit more in detail about what their life of their child looks like as a middle schooler.
All right, well, thank you.
Yep.
Questions? Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
All right, we have a couple of quick policies.
Yes, so BEDG is good. It just needs a couple of edits. The sample is in there. The sample looks great. The only thing that I'm gonna do is remove the highlighted yellow. I checked to make sure other policies that were referenced we have. And then the only section I'll be striking is where it mentions policy BEC, because we don't have that policy and we don't need it. So I'm just gonna cross that off. So it's ready to go. It's been in there for a while.
Are we ready to act on this one tonight, guys? Let's get a motion going.
Move to approve.
Second.
BEDG.
So we have a motion to approve BEDG. We have second. Additional discussion.
This would be some changes, like as we look at the second page here under top of the second page, I guess it's the required content of minutes, like one, names of members presenting as number two, it says persons appearing before addressing the board. Right, we don't do that right now, so this would be some changes to the job description.
We typically know who's,
Who speaks during public comments?
Yes, Trish,
Yeah,
Trish reports
Trish.
that. Yeah, I don't, do you put it on the minutes though?
It's not in the minutes.
I don't put people's names. I just put a resident, but I put names in my notes. I mean, if you want me to put
Yeah, I
people's
think
names,
it
can do that.
does indicate that it would be recorded on the minutes. So once we format this, I'll get it to you so that we,
Put names.
Yeah.
Did you? Okay.
It'll just be some changes. I think.
yeah, thanks. for pointing that out.
additional discussion. Seeing now, Gigi. She still with us?
Yes,
Oh.
sorry.
She
Well-
figured out how to mute herself.
Okay.
Yes,
All
a
right.
little slow on the unmute. Aye.
All right, Andy.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Nate.
Aye.
Okay, next up we have EH.
So after reviewing I would actually think that you could do away with this policy because it's really about public access to records, and you have a records retention policy that's referenced in this. This is only a paragraph long, and I feel like I'm more generous than this policy in terms of right to know, because I really just ask for an email, because you're really supposed to respond to any request. So I've purposely not put a strict set of procedures in place. The only thing I do is if someone makes a request in person, I just say, please email me, because I probably won't remember, but I accept any right to know request.
I guess the question I would have for you is, let's say it's X number of years in the future, you're not here. Is your precedent going to cause conflicts for a future board or superintendent because of?
No, because I still keep it all. I still meet the record retention portion of it, so I have it in writing. I have the email requesting it, and I save my response and any attachments that I give to whoever made the request.
I guess my question is, that's like a U protocol, right? Like your standard operating procedure. So let's say somebody else is in your shoes X number of years from now. You're confident that our record retention policy will adequately meet the letter of the law?
Yes, and right to know law is pretty prescriptive,
Yep.
so. I mean, if you want a policy, you can have a policy, but it's a recommended policy, not a required policy.
So
So I certainly
up
am
to you
in
guys.
favor of not having 497,000 policies when not necessary. So Patty's recommendation to us is that we strike this policy from the record.
I move to strike EH public access to school district records.
And we just want to note that the information in EH is actually deleted. Policy to reference would be ED.
There's a policy already to request information and the policy, the records retention policy too is EHB.
Oh, I'm sorry, EHB.
Yeah.
All right. Additional discussion?
Second.
Okay.
So I just second that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do.
Andy, Gigi?
It was seconded, right?
Yep.
Okay. That, and are you taking the vote now, or are you just asking me if I have any additional discussion?
Do you have any additional discussion?
Nope. I think that if we don't need it and it's covered in those other laws and policies, I agree.
Excellent. Would you like to vote now?
Yes, aye.
Andy? Jeff?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Hey. Aye. Okay. I don't think we had any informational items. Yep. Okay, that brings us to public comments. Do we have public comments? Dottie,
It's Dosty.
Dusty, I'm sorry.
No worries. Hi, I'm Bobby Ann Dosty from 5 Brown Road. You mentioned in the beginning of your presentation that the goal is school choice, but you only gave us one other choice. So I know that I've been coming to these meetings quite a long time now, and it was recommended that there was more than one. So I know I was advocating for Co-Brown. I've heard a lot of good things about Co-Brown from past friends, past people I've known. And I just wonder why you didn't include Pembroke Academy, for example, because it's in our SAU, or any other information. Also too, I don't know why you only included Concord's proposed contract for 1 year. You mentioned it's a lot cheaper that first year, but then it'll go up a little bit, but we're not going to talk about how much later. So I think that the community will want to know, if you're going to present Concord is the cheapest, that's the only reason we're sending our kids. But if we gave you the option to go to Co-Brown, all 100% would go to Co-Brown. Like, okay, first of all, Barrington has figured this out. You mentioned that, and I've talked to people. Barrington figured this out. Why is it that Barrington has school choice and you didn't even try? It just seems like you were so set in Concord. Or did you negotiate with Pembroke? You didn't say that in your presentation. So even the board might not even know if you did, like the other members. Yeah, I'm curious as to why it's so one-sided, and I think that you're doing a disservice to people for not even trying other options, but thank you for your time you have given. So thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments? Seeing none. That brings us, we don't have any need for another non-public. No appointments or revocations, correct? So that brings us to item 11, for motion to adjourn. So moved. Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, folks. Well, I mean, aye, say aye, thank you. Everybody else say aye. We're good, we're going home. Thank you, guys. Thank you.